556 Maximianus of Ravenna, Byzantine bishop, Basilica San Stefano, dies at about 56, birthdate uncertain. 606 Sabinian, Italian pope 604-06, dies. 965 Odo, Duke of Burgundy b. 944. In 1071 Arnulf III, Earl of Flanders Hainault Arnulf I, dies in battle. In 1078 John of Fécamp, Italian mystic writer known for meditations of St. Augustine, dies. In 1111 Roger Borsa, King of Sicily. In 1213 Wibert of Gembloers, benediction writer abbot of Gembloers, dies. In 1371 David Roman II, King of Scots 1329-71 last of the House of Bruce, dies at 46. In 1471 John of Rokycan, Czech Catholic archbishop, dies at about 74, birthdate uncertain. In 1478 Hendrik Herp Herpius Harphius, writer Spiegel Volkamenheit, dies. In 1511 Henry, Duke of Cornwall, first living child of King Henry Roman VIII and Catherine of Aragon, dies at 7 weeks. In 1627 Olivier van Noort, Dutch navigator, completed first Dutch circumnavigation of the globe b. 1558. In 1628 Pierre Dugua de Monts, French explorer, trade and governor of Arcadia, established first permanent settlement in New France at Île Sainte-Croix, dies at about 60. In 1636 Santorio Sanctorius, Venetian physiologist and physician, invented thermometer, dies at 74. In 1674 Jean Chapelain, French writer and poet La Pucelle, dies at 78. In 1674 John Wilson, English composer, dies at 78. In 1680 Catherine Monvoisin, French sorceress BC. 1640. In 1690 Charles Le Brun, French classical painter, who helped establish the French Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture, dies at 70. In 1731 Frederick Reich, Dutch anatomist and botanist, developed techniques for preserving specimens, dies at 92. In 1732 Francis Atterbury, English man of letters, politician, and priest, Church of England Bishop of Rochester, 1713-23, dies at 68. In 1742 Charles Rivington, English publisher b. 1688. In 1750 Pietro Filippo Scarlotti, composer, dies at 71. In 1770 Christopher Snyder, 11, Boston, becomes first martyr of U.S. Revolution. In 1777 Archibald Bullock, American lawyer, Revolutionary War military officer, and politician, governor of Georgia, 1776-77, dies mysteriously at 47. In 1780 Francesco Roman III d'Este, Duke of Modena Reggio, dies at 81. In 1788 Franz Joseph Schlegel, composer, dies at 63. In 1797 Baron Mnch Horsen, German adventurer, soldier and storyteller, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, dies at 76. Chinese politician and infamous Qing dynasty court official, considered the most corrupt official in Chinese history, commits forced suicide at 48 by hanging himself on the order of the Jia Qing Emperor after he declared Hessian guilty by imperial edict. In 1816 Adam Ferguson, Scottish sociologist and historian, dies at 92. In 1822 Johann Ignaz Walter, German opera singer and composer, dies at 66. In 1824 John Davy, British composer, dies at 60. In 1827 Charles Willson Peale, American painter remembered for portraits of leading American Revolution figures, George Washington, dies at 85. In 1829 Adam Earl von Nieperk, Austrian general and Napoleon's wife Marie Lover, dies at 53. In 1836 John Clark Whitfield, English organist and composer, dies at 65. In 1838 Friedrich Johann Eck, German violinist and composer, concertos pour violon, dies at 70. In 1846 Carolus Antonius Fodor Karl Anton Fodor, Dutch pianist, conductor and prominent composer, dies at 77. In 1849 Alexander Fisker, German pianist and composer piano septets, dies of lung disease at 28. Scottish geologist Principles of Geology, dies at 77. In 1875 Jean-Baptiste Camille Corot, French painter, dies at 78. In 1878 Franz Hunton, German pianist and composer, dies at 84. In 1888 Jean Delphin Allard, French violinist and composer, dies at 72. In 1890 Karl Heinrich Bloch, Danish painter Artworking Chapel at Frederiksborg Palace, dies of cancer at 55. In 1890 John Jacob Astor Roman III, American businessman Astor Estate Holdings, dies at 67. In 1891 Charles Brockden Brown, father of American novel, American pioneering writer and editor Wieland, dies of tuberculosis at 39. In 1892 Hermann Kokeman, German Catholic prelate b. 1828. In 1896 George D. Robinson, 34th Governor of Massachusetts 1884-87 and lawyer who defended Lizzie Borden, dies at 62. In 1897 Charles Blondin, French acrobat and tightrope walker, dies at 72. In 1903 Frederick William Farrar, British writer and educator, Dean of Canterbury, 1895-1903, dies. In 1903 Hugo Philipp Jakob Wolf, Austrian composer corregidor, dies at 42. In 1904 Leslie Stephen, English writer and critic b. 1832. In 1911 Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, American poet, bury me in a free land, the slave mother, abolitionist, suffragist, temperance activist, and novelist Iola Leroy, dies at 85. In 1911 William Lewis Cable, Old Tig American Brigadier General Confederate Army and Mayor of Dallas, dies at 84. In 1912 Richard André, German geographer André S. Handetles, dies at 76. In 1913 Ferdinand de Saussure, Swiss linguist Mémoire sur le système primitif des voyelles dans les langues indo-européennes, dies at 55. In 1913 Pino Suarez, Mexican Vice President 1911-13, assassinated in a military coup at 43. In 1914 Vala Amamudelia, took part in Indian passive resistance, dies of a fever contracted in prison. In 1921 Salam al-Mubarak al-Sabr, Emir of Kuwait b. 1864. In 1925 Jules Helapat, Belgian Catholic minister, dies at 72. In 1925 Nina Salomon N.E. Pauline Davis, British Jewish poet, author, translator and suffragette, dies of cancer at 47. In 1925 Thomas Albot, English physiologist, diseases of the heart, dies at 88. In 1930 Gottfried Conrad van Dalen, Dutch general controversial governor of Assay accused of brutality, dies at 66. In 1934 Willem Kess, Dutch violinist, composer and conductor Concertgebouw Orchestra, dies at 78. In 1936 Johan S. G. Joldborg, Danish writer Dines Degt, dies at 74. In 1936 John Hope, American educator, president of Atlanta Baptist Morehouse,